So we left off the last video having seen how to introduce events in F#. So we had this example of an author where we had a name changed event that we tied to whenever you updated the name of his author. We exposed it using this field name changed in a capitalized way, and we could then add a listener to this, and we could define some functionality in here that says that the name is changed and printed whatever the new name was, and this would get triggered then whenever we updated the name. What I want to show in this video is how to extend this to also take parameters into account. So there might be a number of reasons why you want to feed parameters in whenever these events happen. So let's say in this case that we're particularly looking at now, if you update the name, it might be interesting to know what the name was beforehand and what we're now changing it to. And if you want to pass that information in a very seamless way with the event, that would be something you can do. So if you look at what we did last time, we printed this name changed, but then we just used whatever the name was of our structure after we were done. We were not actually passing any information with the event. So to see how we do that, let's define a type first. So this type will be the type that we send to the event as a parameter. If we only have one parameter, we could just send that single parameter, but now I want to define a type for myself. So I'm going to call this event params, like that. And this would be a record, and it would have two parameters. So the first one of these would be old name, and that's going to be a string. And the second one will be new name, and that's also going to be a string, like that. So this is quite self-explanatory. We send the old name and the new name into this structure, and we're going to use that to pass it on to whatever we print in the terminal. So what we would do then is we would redefine this parameter here, which is unit type in this case, and this will now have event params as input. What this tells us is the event expects this type to be sent in whenever we trigger the event. So you can see here now that we get an error because we don't send any parameters here. Similarly here, we don't send any parameters and therefore we get errors now, but we're going to resolve that. So what I want to do here is I want to say event params is equal to, and then I'm going to create one of these records, and I'm going to say old name is equal to underscore name, and new name is equal to value. So let's step back for 1 second and think about what we do here. Oh, sorry, I should also write let event params. There we go. So let's think about what we do. This is the setter of the name. So whenever we want to set the name, we're going to provide some value. That's going to be the new name that we want to set. And you could see that we updated the name here. This is the internal name variable to whatever value we provide. What I'm doing here is I'm creating these event parameters before I do this update. So since I haven't done this update yet, this underscore name thing is still going to contain whatever the old name is. And the new name is going to be contained within this value parameter that we send to the function. So I define these event parameters, and it's important that I do that before this assignment here. And then when I trigger my event, I'm going to provide the event parameters in here. That basically tells us that whenever we trigger this event, that's going to be triggered together with, these two parameters. And they will be accessible from the listener here. And in fact, we need to provide a type that now coincides with this event parameters. So these parentheses indicate a unit type, but we no longer have a unit type here. We have event parameters. So we can call this input or whatever we want. And what I will say here is name changed and then old name and then new name. Okay. And here, what I would put is, instead of author name, we will access the parameters that we have here. So input dot, and you can see old and new name are both accessible. So let me add these. Okay, so the reason why I put old name first is because this at symbol here, or %A, comes before this one. So the ordering is still maintained in this print function. So we have now defined this listener, and we will update the name. Let me remove this printfn statement in the end. What I would expect now is after the author name here is set to be Andy, this listener would actually print this stuff. So let's execute and see what we get. So as expected, we can see name changed, old name, Dan, new name, Andy. And we are therefore able to pass this parameter, so the original name, that gets captured here, and also the new name is reflected in the output. And that's how you use parameters in combination with events.